Facebook. We're going to go ahead and step out for a second. Sometimes I'm just pondering and wondering on something, and I would like to know what you guys think. And so I'm going to go ahead and tap into something that I don't normally go into, but we're going to use some of the terms and things that we use on this channel to uh, convey or understand what these people were really talking about when it comes to our story. So we're going to go ahead and I hope, again, that I can use this video. If not, oh well. Um, we're going to go ahead and watch a small clip because things are just running through my mind and pointing me in certain directions. And, I'm just getting so sick and tired. It's almost like the same thing when people say Jesus died for your sins, okay? Or died on the cross to save you, okay? The only people that died on a cross or being hung or anything of that sort in this so-called world is the so-called is the American, is the Aboriginal people of all of these land masses. Okay, those are the people that died on the cross so that other people, okay, can go ahead and be fruitful and multiply on your land. Okay, so knowing that within my whole, see, from looking at the past, the present, okay, looking at the biblical and looking at his story, okay, and using common sense and discernment at this point in time. So I'm so tired of hearing people saying that because, again, a lot of times we don't realize that things that have been banned against us that we fought for were very things that our ancestors at that particular time may not have even wanted. See, integration. A lot of people did not want to integrate. That happened to be one of the worst things that we did to ourselves in this particular country. So anything that's put on a mainstream, that's on the front page almost every day, that they're making a mockery of and showing on your television, anything that they put up on a level of a national level when it pertains to you is opposite. Everything that they do when it comes to you is opposite what the fuck you think it is. I know that. So that's why I'm going to take that same mindset going against the grain and look at why people keep saying these things that, like, people say in church that don't make no damn sense. Our ancestors died to vote. Our ancestors, do you know that? Or is that what you've been given the perception to think that that's what they died for? So we're going to go ahead and dig into this and we're going to look at this with a spiritual lens, the real one. Okay? So it's just a pet peeve of mine. Okay. So I wanted to dig into it and see what I can see here. All right. Thinking with a clear mind and knowing who we're dealing with here. Okay. And now knowing who we are and who we were here. Okay. So let's watch this little clip here because we're going to have to tap into women's voting, right? Because remember, when we do etymology on women, it can be pertaining to both men and women. And when we look in the biblical text with our with the theoretic, okay, perceived or what can we say? Mm, we're gonna look at it with there's a word there, and I've been trying to keep it here. Um, we are speculating, right? So we're speculating by using these terms and using them in their proper fashion to see what was really being talked about here. So here's a video about women's rights, and I want you to just really pay attention to a couple things. I'm gonna go ahead and stop because I just can't help myself when these things pop up so that we can go ahead and reflect on them.
This summer, we begin our celebration of the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment, the amendment that guaranteed women the right to vote. It's often thought that the amendment was necessary because the Constitution prohibited women from.
They thought that it was because it prohibited women from voting. Okay. These women here, again, I don't know what year this is, but these women here, these signs here that they have, okay, are saying we are a 51% minority. Since when did they become a minority? Or is something else going on here? We have the right to vote for the man underlined of our choice. Okay. Again, know that these are foreigners here. Nothing against nobody today or whatever. I mean, you know what I'm saying? You can think how you think, want to think that I'm coming at this, but I am coming at this using the terms that they're using and using the information that has been given, and we're just separating and dissecting things as we go. So again, they're calling themselves minority in this image here. Okay? And they're saying they have the right to vote for the man. Now, again, we know that man, when we're looking at the historical biblical way of looking at this, is those who came from their uh, mother and fatherland to join or cleave to or to wed or to marry, okay, the land and the peoples here in America. Okay, there's a lot more to husbandry and man and woman than you think. It's always allegory. uh there's always parables. There's always uh the yin and the yang, whatever duality. It's always there. Okay, because they're speaking in one language and you're thinking, because they've indoctrinated the hell out of you in school and church, that they're talking about something else, and they know exactly what they're doing. Okay.
But American women actually have a history of voting, stretching back to the early republic. Under the Constitution,
just checking out some things in the background here. So they're saying American women actually could vote, whatever. They show these images of these supposed women here. And let's go back and see when they say that they were voting, because I could have sworn that it was a very long time ago.
Voting was handled by the state.
By the state?
Some allowed white men to vote.
Some allowed white men to vote. What do you mean? I thought the problem was the fact that white men could vote and that so-called black people couldn't. You see what I'm saying? Some allowed white men to vote. Who were white men at that time? Who were the white men back then? Well, let's see where this was. 1929 is on this poster here. Okay. So again, remember, everything that happened in this nation did not happen everywhere. They happened in little pockets here and there. Okay. So again, some allow white men to vote. What do you mean? I thought white men were the ones that always had the right to vote, and that so-called women and so-called Negroes didn't. So let's keep going.
Some had property requirements. Several states allowed free blacks to vote.
And some had property requirements. Property requirements. Property requirements. Huh. What kind of property requirements? Property when it comes to produce, when we're talking about people, not always talking about vegetables and fruits and shit. Okay. What property?
And one state, New Jersey, made history by recognizing the right of women to vote, a first in recorded human history. It's no accident that women voted in America before anywhere else. Our country was founded on the self-evident, gender-neutral truth of...
So women, they're going to give you these images here. Again, I don't even know if this person knows, but I'm just telling you. They're giving you these images of these, talking about women, but, you know, again, we don't see any so-called African American or American Indian women here. But my whole thing, shit, that I just want to tap on was, let's go back. I'm talking too fast or too soon.
Gender-neutral truth of human equality.
Okay, nope, we got to go back a little bit further.
The self-evident, gender-neutral truth of human equality and the consent of the governed.
Okay, human equality. Don't we always try to separate these terms? Who are the human? Now I'm really getting to the point where I'm feeling like we can go ahead and say the human are all the different hues of man that came over here. We're talking about the dark-skinned Irish, the Swedes, all these people that came over here. Some of them had more olive complected or different complexion skin. Some of them were very dark skinned. When it comes to Ellis Island, all these people, you know, make up humans. Okay. This makes up humans, and those are possibly people, okay? Again, because you were still 3/5 of a human being, or 3/4 or whatever of a human being. So these particular people will be counted as people, those who are governed. So when they're talking about we the people, it does not include you because you were not the people. So again, we're going to realize that some other things were going on when it was talking about these people coming in to vote, like giving up. There was a lot of American Indian things going on with civil rights. We all know that the civil rights supposedly had something to do with was supposedly for black rights or so-called Negro rights, but again, it has something to do with American Indian or Native American rights. Okay. So once we do that and we realize those particular things, let's keep going.
New Jersey was just the first state to apply the.
And those ones are governed. Okay. So if you're not governed, okay, or you're out of wedlock, meaning a lot of the people in the South that did not want anything to do with the system, they wanted to be left alone to do their own thing. They didn't want to sign up for no social security number. They didn't want to sign no census. They didn't want no birth certificate. They didn't want, we have a wrong perception, I think, when it comes to the South and people leaving the South to go to the North. I think that we're thinking, I think we've been bamboozled with a lot of these things. Okay. And we forget that these people use tactics such as starving people out in order to get them to do things. And that a lot of these tactics just had something to do with you thinking that your vote counts, but you actually had to give up your rights to your tribe in order to be a citizen of the United States, which is a corporation that is here running things. Okay. When it has to do with sovereign people. Okay. And that they were doing these things in order to gravitate you, not physically all the time, okay, but to sign up to be a citizen. So then you're in a wedlock because they came here and they wedded the country by taking on, parts of land or groups of people. But at the same time, to put that lock in was to get everybody to come back and sign up to be an American citizen, in my opinion.
To its state constitution and laws. But in 1807,
that's very important. And it's probably very important that we go look at these different states and their laws and acts and things by state instead of looking at what the United States as a whole did. We need to probably look at some of these other things. Okay. So let's keep going.
Constitution and laws. But in 1807, rampant voter fraud. Some women voted as many as 6 times in a single election.
Okay. So some women voted 6 times within an election. Now, okay, what was that? Who was turning the cheek when this was going on? Because again, the first woman, I can't remember the exact date. We're going to go ahead and look at it. To actually vote in New York was in 1700s, in the late 1700s, right? The late 1700s is basically when we first got the first president anyway. But I'm just saying, in the late 1700s, that women were already voting before this time, all the way up until 1807. Okay. So they were already voting. So why would they be putting, and we don't have any images of these so-called women. We don't have any pictures of these so-called women being abused or turned away, or we don't have any info. They just talk about women's rights and they say what happened around that time. They don't really give you a real thorough look at what was going on or images of these women going and being turned away from voting or anything, right? So we're just going off of what we've been told, right?
Ended women's suffrage in the state, and New Jersey limited the vote to white property owning males.
White property. Here we go back talking about white property owning males. Wow. That makes me think of governors. That makes me think of lords and masters. Okay. Farmers, all these people. We're going to go back and talk a lot about this breeding and shit that was going on under the guise of something else. Okay. So these are white property owning males. What type of property would they have? See, because they would have to have their foot in the door and they would have to obtain some type of property that would have some type of attachment or some standing originally in this land in order to be able to do some of the things that, see, so many things have been So many things have been changed. So many things have been, your perception by it being indoctrinated in this school system all this time has erased what the fuck was there. Okay, blotted out what you would want to think for yourself, and packed it full of all this other stuff that you learned in school. That by the time you graduate and you so damn happy to be up out of there when you 18, if you don't sign up to go to college, you done forgot every damn thing that you learned. You understand what I'm saying? You done forgot everything. The most important things is how to speak, how to read, how to write, and how to do math. Simple fucking math, unless you're going on to be some kind of accountant or something. Okay? Seriously, ask yourself, what all do you use or apply? Think about all the times you beat your kids' ass for not doing what they supposed to do at school and their homework. Think of all the times of all this other shit, and think about what they actually, the percentage of shit that they learned in school besides the abuse, the bullying, the learning how to be consumers. Okay, because they want certain things because other people have them in their class or in their school. Think about anything other than the scars taken away from school, and see how important you really, just look back at it and see what you really think about the school system and what they're really doing. Because again, educate means to take out and remove, and then to train or fill. Okay, so what they did was take common things away from these people and their traditions and their cultures, and they placed something else there. Okay, so go ahead and do the etymology on educate. Okay, and then again, before you come at me, okay, again, because it's there for all of us to use, and then come back and see what you think.
It wasn't until 1848 the first convention of women's rights met in Seneca Falls, New York. Women in the late 1800s pursued three separate strategies for securing women's suffrage. One, a broader interpretation of the 14th Amendment.
Okay. Now, again, I'm just coming in at this. So, when it comes to the 13th, 14th Amendment, whatever that was added in later on that had something to do supposedly with Negroes, you know what I'm saying? What happened at that particular time is something that we should probably look into. Because this is just an introduction. I don't know how far I'm going to go with this. A lot of things I'm just trying to go ahead and tap into it so that you can kind of, and if someone else is well versed in this type of stuff, maybe they can take it somewhere else. Okay. So again, I want to welcome you guys to join the group American Aborigines Unchained on Facebook if you haven't already. And if you find out some more information about this, or if it's something that you know and you think can help us elaborate on this, go ahead and share it in the group or down below in the comment section.
Grants all citizens equal protections of the law.
So that's all citizens equal protection to the law. So if you're not a citizen, or you're a child that was born out of wedlock, meaning that your parents had not signed up to be citizens of this government yet, they were in the wilderness, right? Or in the South, it makes me question the whole thing about the damn Confederates and what they really were fighting for, what these slaveholders were really fighting for. It's just so many things that I think they really did a number on us by lying about it or giving us a false notion or perception.
2, changing individual state laws. And 3, a constitutional amendment to override amendment to state laws.
Let me see something. Civil and religious condition and rights of women will be held during the first day of the meeting will be exclusive for the women who are earnestly invited to attend. The public generally are invited. This call was published by Seneca County. Okay, declaration. Okay. Okay, I just wanted to see that.
3, a constitutional amendment to override all state laws. After years of lobbying, marching, picketing, and protesting for the right to the ballot, their state-by-state approach worked, and the U.S. House of Representatives finally approved the Susan B. Anthony Amendment.
So again, yeah, we're in the 1800s, early 1800s, coming out of the 1700s. When did they finally run out all of the Because we have to think here that somebody was doing something before we had the first president here in the Americas in 1798 or whatever it was. So I'm trying to think back at when the so-called black Republicans were run out of office for good, and see if these things tie together time-wise on the timeline.
Guaranteed women the right to vote on May 21st, 1919. The U.S. Senate followed 2 weeks later, and the
Notice in none of these images do you see any original women. You see no original women. Possibly right here, possibly, but she can pass. But you really haven't seen any. You just really haven't, because who were the women at that time? Women, again, would include also indigenous people that were here, the offspring of the earth, native people that were here, okay? Which again would be indigenous people. Indigenous people, I consider them as being uh, tied to the land, right? Because it would have been the offspring or the grasses or um, fruits from trees, things like this that we're talking about in the biblical historical manner. These would be people that had something to do or had ties to foreign groups in order to sometimes even interpret between them and the more wild Indians or the more originals or aborigines, right? So again, I'm just wondering what was really going on, especially when it's mainly talking about New York and some certain states who were really still ruling at that time. And was it really these so-called white folks that we call them today that were fighting for the right to vote? And once they got that right to vote, because you still didn't, so-called black women still didn't get the right supposedly until way later, right? To the 60s or something, right? So again, what were we really talking about? Because they men and women that look like this on the screen would have been considered to be women. It is that had wedded, or that men from foreign lands came to have and to hold, right? Okay.
Amendment went to the states, where it had to be ratified by 3/4 of the then 48 states.
See, and then they use that term 3/4. 3/4. Is that the thing that they use when they talk about how Negroes were 3/4 of a human being, and they had to get 3/4 of. See, it's just certain things that stand out like that to me.
To be added to the Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
By a vote of 50 to 49, Tennessee.
And is that what they added to the Constitution and you thought it was talking about you? Is it talking about you? What is it talking about? I just really want somebody to help us break this down.
Became the last state needed to ratify the 19th Amendment on August 18th in 1920. Today, more than 68 million women vote in elections because of the courageous suffrage.
Okay, so again, let's just go back to that image that we just seen here. Consider these as women. This is any type of Slavic, the so-called white cargo that was here that we never talk about in school or anything, is the so-called white slaves. We're talking about different people that came here and decided to stay here that were came from foreign lands. We're talking about we could be talking about free uh, Negroes or free blacks or whatever. And we could also be talking about original, aboriginal or indigenous people, native people alike. But again, imagine a man standing right next to these people, because when we look at the term women, we can see that it is most times described as being something that they would use in duality with men and women. Okay.
In elections because of the courageous suffragists who never gave up the fight for equality.
Mm-hmm. All right. So that's just going to be the first video that I do. I just wanted to kind of let you guys see where I might be coming from and some of the things that we should really pay attention to, because that was packed with a lot of information that we can go ahead and look at on an alternative level to see what was really going on here. Because I think that this whole thing about the right to vote, and they have a way of making you feel like something is wrong for you to fight for it, beg them for it, and then achieve it, but you really don't know what it was. When it comes to mixing of races, again, we are where we are today. I have nothing against anyone who has or does. I have mixed people in my immediate family, and that's just the way the fuck it is. Okay, so this is not to say anything horrible to anyone that has this, but I cannot, even though I'm doing something, I cannot sit there, okay, and try to act like we shouldn't look at this and see where this originated from. It just has to be looked at, okay? So again, when I'm saying this, when I'm saying amalgamation, this is what was going on in Genesis. This is what was going on when it was talking about forming their men, okay? So again, you are the people that were there prior to Genesis. Genesis is about how they use your strands of DNA along with other strands to create subgroups or races of people in this land, and they've done it all over the world, the so-called world, okay? So at one point in time, you know, he let the light and the dark chill together, and then he made it something that they weren't supposed to do, and then he made it so that they do it again. Okay, so can we think about any kind of amalgamation laws in Maryland or anything that were passed, right? And then at some certain time they lifted them again. Okay, so this is all about the multiplying, like the sands of the sea. This is all about them multiplying on the earth, some within the earth, and some bringing their people from their own lands in droves, because again, these are the only people that are documented to be coming here in the numbers of millions. There was only so-called 250, we'll just say 300,000, okay, so-called Africans that were brought here from Africa during the entire slave trade now. But we have documents, and that's their documents that we're using, okay? Now, when we're talking about foreigners that were flooding the nations, when we're talking about some of these floods that happened biblically and historically, these are talking about different groups of people, okay, that came here to the land and flooded it. We're talking about cultivation, irrigation. We're talking about seeding. We're talking about all the things that were going on, okay? So I'm just wondering. I don't know. And how we think 1828, they changed the term American to be something that was deemed to the children of the Europeans, right? Because it first belonged to the Aboriginal or indigenous people here in the land. Um, Prior to that, the copper colored people or whatnot, but then that standing was given to the children of the conquerors. All right. So at the same time, I'm just trying to tell you that it was already a melting pot even when they came here. Some of the people came here willingly. Some of the people were Slavic or commoners, peasants, and servants when we talk about the caste system. All right. So could this be leftovers of those groups gaining their power on the earth, which is so-called black folks or the originals? Okay. And then they were demanding that they have a right to vote, and then now we're thinking, what, in 67 I think this was going on, the fighting for the right to vote and not be bothered or whatever. So again, throughout that time, a lot of things had changed. A lot of power had been passed on to foreigners that didn't belong to the original people anymore. Okay, so again, that was just video one. I'm going to go ahead and come back, and we're going to look at a couple of acts and a couple of things that were going on and being signed at that time. So I want to thank you guys for listening, and take care.